The coronavirus pandemic has affected countries and millions of people worldwide. Here in the United States, many people are doing their part to help slow the spread of the virus so we can, hopefully and eventually, get through this. It may take some time before this is the case, however. One of the first things to go was several events, including sports games. The International Olympic and Paralympic Committees announced in March that the Olympics and Paralympics would be postponed until 2021. The last English Premier League game was between Leicester City and Aston Villa on March 9th, until the league was postponed indefinitely. Liverpool only 2 games away from the title. A lot of questions with no one seemingly having the answers. One of the most popular sports leagues around this time of year, because it's typically playoff time, is the National Basketball Association. The NBA suspended their season as the first professional league in the United States to do so, and for good reason, as NBA player Rudy Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus on March 11th. Gobert would go on to apologize on his Instagram after he was seen the night before touching every journalist's mic during a press conference. But he was met with little praise, some saying that he would receive Defensive Player of the Year again for blocking out the whole league. Soon after, whole teams would begin testing their players at a time when tests were fairly rare in the United States. Fans, players, coaches, owners alike were in shock after the news. In the final game played on that night, the Mavericks versus the Nuggets, Mavericks owner Mark Cuban said during an interview that,
"This is crazy, this can't be true. I mean, it's not within the realm of possibilities, it seemed more like out of a movie than reality."
Besides this statement, Cuban didn't question the move and trusted the NBA officials with knowledge and expertise in this area.
I didn't have any expectations, really. I mean, the thing about it is, I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to try to be an expert. And the NBA, our plan here was to defer to the NBA. I mean, they have people who specialize in this, and they're talking to the CDC, the health organizations, the HHS. So I don't want to pretend and try to fake it, So we were just going to defer to the NBA. This thing is just exploding to the point where, all of a sudden players and others have had it. You think about your family, you want to really make sure you're doing this the right way, because now it's much more personal, and you've seen what's happening in other countries. But just the whole idea that it's come this close and potentially a couple players have it, just stunning isn't the right word. I mean, it's just crazy.
He did, however, make his point clear that this was indeed bigger than basketball.
This is much bigger than just the NBA. Hopefully we'll get to see, when we talk about getting the season back on track, that means all this got worked out, right? That maybe we understand more about it, and it'll be less of an issue for the entire country, for the entire world. So that's really what's most important. I mean, I walked over to my wife. It's like, do we send our kids to school tomorrow? Is it that big? And again, it's like out of a movie. It's not even real.
The Mavs game was played in front of a sellout crowd of 20,302 people, something that seems impossible nowadays. Amongst those in the American Airlines Center, besides the fans, players, coaches, etc., are the wage workers that the stadium has on staff to run concessions, clean up trash in bathrooms, security, human resources, and any other job title that gets paid an hourly wage instead of a yearly salary. Now, with the league and several other stadium-associated events being canceled, where would these $11 to $13 workers get a paycheck that they so desperately need? With little to be earned, there is a lot lost for these workers when there are no games going on. Some of these workers even operate on a commission basis. In an interview with the Associated Press, 56-year-old 76ers popcorn stand worker Rodney Thompson detailed that the more I sell, the more I make. The less I sell, the less I make. I would have no income coming in. I make pretty good money, but if there's no fans, there's no work. The last thing people think of when it comes to the NBA is these small-time workers, barely making a living, when normally players and coaches make millions in minutes. With that much money to go around, little makes it to these workers. Steph Curry and his 5-year, $201.2 million contract will do just fine during this pandemic. And so indeed will our billion-dollar philanthropist and Shark Tank host Mark Cuban. However, they and many others won't move on without losing billions of dollars of lost revenue. Very recently, the NBA announced that they will withhold 25% of players' paychecks beginning May 15th, and owners like Cuban are unable to sell merchandise to the same extent and no tickets will be sold. As the economy tanks in the United States, there isn't much the NBA can do to help it without taking this hit in the short term in order to prevent any spread of the virus. Although there is still some good news to come out of this situation, players and owners like Cuban have committed or donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to these stadiums and their hourly wage employees. Within minutes of his previous comments, Cuban said that he will be looking to make sure these wage workers remain on staff and receive money as if the games happen.
Now that we're not playing games, what about all the people who work here on an hourly basis? You know, we'll put together a program for them, but...
You know, in talking to when some of the things were coming up that we might not play games, and this was yesterday, I reached out to the folks at the arena and our folks at the Mavs to find out, you know, what it would cost to financially support people who aren't going to be able to come to work. You know, they get paid by the hour, and this was their source of income. And so we'll do some things there. We may ask them to go do some volunteer work in exchange, but you know, we've already started the process of having a program in place, and I don't have any details to give, but it's certainly something that's important to me.
The Cleveland Cavaliers, Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors, Washington Wizards, Golden State Warriors, and the Atlanta Hawks, and many more NBA teams have all revealed plans to help make sure all staff are being taken care of during this pandemic. Players like Kevin Love and Zion Williamson have committed to donating money, upwards of $100,000, for these workers at their respective home stadiums. In an Instagram post, Williamson brought up how many of the people working at the Smoothing King Center are still suffering from the economic setback of Katrina in 2005, and how these people are generally responsible for the games happening at all. With almost every team in the league pledging some sort of payment for these workers, it's only a matter of time before they receive compensation to get themselves back on their feet or continue to stay level. Currently, the NBA is unaware of when the season will be able to start up again, if at all, and when these individuals will be able to return to work. Every individual during a basketball game is responsible for its operation. So the ball boys, floor sweepers, popcorn sellers, and players on the court, this shutdown is monumental and something the league has never seen. It's time for arena workers to get their fair share, as well as paid leave due to the coronavirus, because without it, people are going to suffer. Player and owner contributions are helping to save lives as bills continue to pile up. It goes to show that everyone in the league makes the game that we love happen, and that no matter who you are a fan of, we are in this together for the foreseeable future.
You know, I have this saying, life is half random, and this is the random side, where, you know, it takes twists and turns, and this is something out of a movie, and you just don't expect it to happen in real life, but that's the randomness of the world we live in. And so it's stunning, but we are where we are, and we have to be smart in how we respond. We, again, as I just said, this is people's lives at stake. This isn't about basketball. This isn't about the Mavericks. This isn't about, you know, when do we start, or do we start, or how do we start. This is a pandemic, a global pandemic, where people's lives are at stake. And, you know, I'm a lot more worried about my kids and my mom, who's 82 years old, you know, and talking to her and telling her to stay in the house than I am about when we play our next game.